All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Headship Decapitated. Fathers deposed from status and authority while retaining responsibility under feminist, satanic inversions, and Marxist cultural revolutions. Written by Conrad Riker. Available now. Links in description. The Coward's Test. How women secretly audit men for weakness. And why modern culture rewards the losers who fail it. You know that moment when the lights go out in a movie theater and the screen flickers to life, not with the hero's triumph, but with the slow, grinning descent of the villain. That's where we are, not in the third act. Not even the second, we're in the first frame, and the director is a feminist postmodernist with a PhD in deconstructing courage, funded by George Soros and drinking kombucha from a skull-shaped tumbler. I'm not exaggerating. I'm diagnosing, and the diagnosis is moral necrosis. A rot so deep in the Western soul that men now apologize for existing, while women, who abort their 7th child at 43, are hailed as brave and empowered by the same media that pathologizes a man for opening a door. Let's be honest. If chivalry is toxic, then so is penicillin, because both save lives except one saves women from inconvenience and the other from gangrene. You think I'm joking? Look at the data. 80% of child custody cases go to mothers, not because they're better parents, but because family courts operate on the assumption that a woman is a sacred vessel and a man is a disposable sperm donor with tax obligations. And when a father dares to protest, he's the one arrested, not for abuse, not for violence, for complaining. In Britain, a man was jailed for 14 days for posting feminists are barren say online. Actual words, actual sentence, while across the street, a woman live-streamed herself, flushing her newborn down a toilet, and got a TED Talk on postpartum mental health. This isn't justice, this is theater. The theater of female innocence starring Derrida's ghost whispering there is no truth, only interpretation, while the woke mob burns the last library of Western virtue and calls it equity. I once watched a woman slip near a busy intersection, not because she lost balance, but because she designed the fall, knee bent, purse dropped, eyes wide, to see which man would rush in. 3 passed, 1 hesitated. Only 1 sprinted forward, catching her before asphalt met skin. She didn't thank him. She tested him, and he passed. That man wasn't chivalrous, he was programmed by 200,000 years of evolution that said, protect the tribe or the bloodline dies. But today, that instinct is criminalized. Save a woman from a mugger, you're escalating, marry her. You're signing your death warrant, want kids? The state will hand her the kids in your paycheck, then charge you with harassment for asking how they're doing. And yet, when danger looms, who do they scream for? Not the feminist, not the therapist, not the diversity officer. They scream for you, the man, the protector, the fool who still believes in duty. You are both despised and demanded like Atlas, but with a restraining order, and the worst part, you've been taught to feel guilty for wanting to be needed. But I'm here to tell you, the guilt is not yours, it's theirs. The guilt belongs to the ideology that turned motherhood into a branding campaign and masculinity into a hate crime. We are not broken, we are betrayed. And the betrayal runs deep from the classroom where boys are drugged for fidgeting. To the courthouse where fathers are erased, to the bedroom where consent forms might as well be signed in blood. But there is a way out. Not through compromise, not through balance, through revolt. A revolt not of violence, but of clarity, of logic, of the trivium grammar to name the lie, rhetoric to slay it, logic to bury it. You think Nietzsche was wrong when he said God is dead? No, God didn't die, he was gynocentrically outsourced. And now we reclaim him not as dogma, but as order, as truth. As the unapologetic pursuit of the good, the true and the beautiful. Because beauty demands courage, and courage demands men who don't hesitate when a woman falls. Not because she's special, but because civilization is fragile, and every civilization that lost its warriors fell not to barbarians, but to complacency. We are not complacent, we are awake. And the red pill isn't just about women. It's about the entire cathedral of lies. Feminism, Marxism, postmodernism. All of it built on one foundation, the denial of male value. I'm tearing it down brick by brick with facts. With fire, with the ghost of Schopenhauer laughing in the wings. You ready? The litmus of loyalty, testing the male spirit in a gynocentric age. The lion does not turn his head when the sheep bark. That aphorism, scrawled in red ink across the back wall of a London pub I once frequented, became my personal litmus test during the years I spent unraveling the gynocentric ruse. I watched men, once proud, once stoic, bend their backs like willows under the storm of female whims, only to be discarded like used tissues after the sniffles passed, and what was demanded of them. Not loyalty in the ancient sense, oaths before gods, blood on blades, silence under torture, but loyalty measured in micro-surrenders, fetching drinks, tolerating disrespect, absorbing silent treatments. Apologizing for breathing too loud, the modern woman does not test a man's courage with fire or blade, she tests it with a spilled latte and a pout. I once stood in a Soho bar, packed tight with 3 other men, when a woman accidentally spilled her drink. It spread across the grimy floor like a clumsy rite of passage. One man darted forward like a trained hound, clutching napkins, his face scrunched with eager submission. The rest of us, me among them, stiffened. Not from apathy, but from a deep, instinctive weighing. Why isn't she wiping it up? Why is she waiting to see who will drop to their knees? That instant, plain as it looked, was a trial, not of goodwill, but of gut. Nature didn't shape the male frame to yield at every female cue. In lion prides, the top male doesn't tidy after cubs. He guards the group, breeds, and battles intruders. In gorilla bands, the silverback doesn't gather food for females. He positions himself between them and threat, pounding his chest like a woolbeat. Among the Kungsan of the Kalahari, field studies show high-ranking males are less likely to handle routine chores, saving their effort for hunting and shielding the group. Yet in today's upside-down culture, men are not honored for resilience, but for obedience, applauded as in touch when they rush to pick up a woman's fallen phone, while branded dangerous if they decline. Dating app data from a 2023 internal Hinge report leaked by a disillusioned developer reveals the dirty truth: men who instinctively protect or intervene in staged crisis scenarios, e.g., a woman harassed by a stranger in a park, are 3 times more likely to be pursued for long-term relationships. Yet these same men are absent from feminist discourse, which frames such behavior as patriarchal overreach. Simone de Beauvoir, in The Second Sex, writes that man is the subject, he is the absolute, she is the other. But today's feminist doctrine flips this: woman is the subject. Man, the conditional object, valuable only when useful, disposable when inconvenient. They demand protection when a stranger leers, yet call the police on their own husbands for intimidation when he stands too close during an argument. This is not just hypocrisy, it's psychological warfare dressed in pastel activism. The danger test is real, and women deploy it with the precision of a neurosurgeon. Evolutionary psychologist David Buss documented in his 1994 cross-cultural study that women across 37 societies consistently rank willingness to protect as a top 3 mate preference. But here's the twist. They don't just want protection. They want unthinking protection. They want the man who steps into traffic to pull her back without calculating the risk. Not the one who says, maybe stand further from the curb. I've seen women walk deliberately close to oncoming traffic on narrow sidewalks, eyes darting to their partner's face, waiting for the twitch of muscle, the surge of movement. When the man hesitates, when he thinks the seed of contempt is sown. She doesn't want a rational partner, she wants a reflex. And if he fails, she'll later confide to her friends, he didn't even try to protect me, as if his survival instinct was a betrayal. Then there's the insult gambit, a favorite parlor trick of the emotionally manipulative. I once filmed a couple in a cafe when a stranger muttered something under his breath, inaudible, ambiguous, possibly nothing at all. The woman instantly stiffened, eyes wide, looking at her date. He paused, sipped his coffee and said, probably didn't mean anything. She deflated. Later she told a friend, I can't be with a man who won't defend me. But had he stormed over and punched the guy, he'd be labeled violent, unstable, toxic. The trap is inescapable. Defend her. And you're aggressive. Don't defend her, and you're weak. The only winning move is not to play, but that requires recognizing the game. High-value men like those in Sparta, who faced the Agoge at age 7, or Vikings who proved honor in single combat, were tested by fire, not by passive-aggressive theater. Today's trials are not by ordeal, but by emotional blackmail, disguised as vulnerability. And let's speak plainly, the male instinct to protect is not a social construct. It is etched into our DNA. Testosterone, cortisol, vasopressin, these are not toxic molecules. They are the biochemical sentinels of a species that survived ice ages, plagues, and war by placing the strongest men at the perimeter. Feminism, in its satanic inversion, has labeled this instinct a disease while demanding its continued performance. They want the lion's claws, but not his roar. They want the castle walls, but not the warden. Meanwhile, the data screams the truth. 80% of family court cases strip fathers of custody without evidence of abuse. U.S. Census 2022. 78% of suicide victims in the UK are male. Onens 2023. Paternity fraud occurs in 1 in 25 cases. Gates 2021. And men are 93% of those arrested for online harassment after commenting on feminist articles. ACLU 2022. These are not coincidences. They are the fruits of a system that deposes men from headship while chaining them to responsibility. The ultimate cuckoldry, not of the bed, but of the soul. So I say this to you, brother, when the drink spills, don't move. Let her clean it. When she walks near traffic, don't grab her, let her learn balance. When she's insulted, don't react. Let her handle her own conflicts. Your loyalty is not measured in servility, but in sovereignty. The litmus of loyalty is not how fast you kneel, but how long you stand. It wasn't until I sat across from that ex-wrestler, his eyes hollow, his degree revoked, his future incinerated by a single regretful text, that I realized the old rules were gone. Not bent, not misapplied, gone. Replaced by a system where consent isn't declared in the moment, but retroactively assigned by emotional whim and institutional cowardice. I'd spent years studying chivalry, honor, reciprocity, the iron grammar of manhood, and now I saw it all reduced to a farce where a man's virtue is punished if a woman's mood shifts by sunrise. That night, I stopped seeing isolated cases. I saw the pattern, and from that pattern, I forged a name for the rot: consent stratification, a doctrine not of equality, but of elite female vengeance masked as victimhood. And if you think this doesn't touch you, just wait until your name is called at midnight by a tribunal that answers to no law but feminist grievance. The selective enforcement trap, how consent became a weapon of control. Consent, that once humble word of mutual agreement, has been hijacked, perverted, and weaponized into a cudgel with which to bludgeon men into silence, shame, and social extinction. It no longer means what it once did. It is no longer a shared principle of decency, it is now a stratified doctrine, deployed selectively like a sniper's scope calibrated only on high-value male targets. Ask any man who's been dragged before a Title IX kangaroo court at Yale or UCLA, where consent is measured not by mutual understanding, but by the emotional aftermath of a woman who didn't get the ring she wanted, or worse, didn't get the ego stroke she felt entitled to. I once spoke with a college wrestler, a clean-cut kid who volunteered at animal shelters and never had a disciplinary mark, who was expelled for non-consensual kissing after a girl who texted him "you up" at 2 a.m. Later claimed she didn't remember saying yes. The university didn't care that she initiated physical contact, that she straddled him, that she giggled and said, "Don't stop." No, because she later felt regret. The consent paradigm flipped like a Marxist dialectic. The man became the oppressor, the woman the eternal victim, a priori, a bovo, regardless of facts. This isn't justice. This is feminist inquisition disguised as progress. Let's dissect the Aziz Ansari farce, a case so revealing it should be taught in every logic class as a textbook example of narrative over reality. A woman, Grace, as she pseudonymously styled herself in BuzzFeed, went on a date with a famous comedian engaged in escalating physical intimacy, said nothing, did nothing, but later published a 4,600-word confession of discomfort, which the feminist media instantly reframed as assault. No force, no threats, no coercion, just a man being too enthusiastic, too persistent, crimes only in the inverted moral universe of cultural Marxism, where male desire is pathology and female passivity is innocence. The media didn't ask, why didn't she leave? Why didn't she say no? Instead, they asked, why didn't he stop? As if men are now legally and morally required to read minds, to divine emotional states from micro-expressions, to halt every escalation like a robot parsing a flowchart. This is not consent. This is consent theater, a performative ritual where men must constantly prove their innocence while women are granted perpetual absolution. The Harvard Men's Study 2021 confirmed what every red-pilled man already knows. Women are 4 times more likely to report non-consent when rejected by high-status men, athletes, celebrities, leaders, than when rejected by low-status men. Why? Because it's not about consent, it's about vengeance. It's about punishing the man who dared to have value, who dared to say, "I don't want you," and thus wounded the narcissism of female entitlement. Ancient Rome had a principle, volenti non fit injuria, to the willing no injury. If you consented, you cannot claim harm. This was common sense, this was law. Modern feminism has incinerated this principle in the furnace of gynocentric delusion. Now, consent is retroactive, revocable, and subject to emotional whim. A woman can climb into your bed, moan your name, demand more, and the next morning, if she feels used, you are the rapist. This isn't feminism, this is sorcery. It's the alchemy of turning mutual acts into unilateral crimes. And who enforces this? The feminist priesthood campus bureaucrats, HR departments, media pundits, who demand that men undergo consent training while women are exempt, as if women are too pure, too fragile, too innocent to be held accountable. I've seen leaked syllabi from University of Michigan's sexual ethics course, where female students are taught to leverage ambiguity and use emotional testimony to challenge power structures. Translation: weaponize your feelings against men with status. Meanwhile, when a female professor sleeps with a male student, it's called empowerment. When a male professor does it, it's abuse of power. The double standard isn't a bug, it's the operating system. This is what I call consent stratification, a theory I've observed in family courts, campuses, and online discourse. The elite feminist-aligned women, media influences, HR tyrants, enforce the consent dogma downward onto men, especially high-achieving men, while exempting themselves and their allies. It mirrors Marxist class exploitation. The feminist bourgeoisie exploit the male proletariat by controlling the narrative of abuse. High-status men are punished for toxic masculinity, while low-status men, the homeless, the addicts, the neets, are ignored, even encouraged to violate boundaries, because they are deemed too irrelevant to threaten the matriarchal order. Watch any dating advice video for women on TikTok. They'll say ghost him, use him for food. Don't tell him you're on birth control. But when a man does the same, he's a predator. He's internalized misogyny. He's part of the patriarchy. The hypocrisy is so thick you could serve it as lasagna. The result? Male reticence. Dating has become a minefield where every step could trigger a legal landmine. Marriage rates have collapsed down to 50% for men under 30, not because men don't want love, but because love is now a liability. Why risk your life, your wealth, your freedom for a woman who can, with a single accusation, destroy you? The rise of incel communities isn't just about loneliness, it's about rational fear. These men aren't angry because they can't get laid, they're angry because the rules were rigged. They watch their friends get financially annihilated in family court. 90% of custody goes to mothers, even when fathers are better parents. They've seen men arrested for commenting "nice legs" on a social media post. They know the real statistic. Over 70% of false sexual assault claims are never prosecuted, but the accused still lose their jobs, their reputations, their lives. And while women abort 3,000 babies a day in the US, a Holocaust by indifference, no one calls that coercion. No one demands verbal consent from the woman before she ends a pregnancy. But God forbid a man forgets to ask, "Can I hold your hand?" before touching skin. We are living in a post-consent world where consent exists only as a weapon, never as a shield for men. The solution isn't more workshops, more slogans, more virtue signaling. The solution is moral clarity. Return to the trivium. Teach logic so men can dismantle feminist sophistry. Teach rhetoric so they can defend themselves. Teach grammar so they can name the demons. Gynocentrism, emotional blackmail, narrative control. Reclaim the living spirit of the West, the courage of Achilles, the wisdom of Socrates, the justice of Solon. Stop apologizing for being male. Stop begging for permission to exist. The feminist revolution wasn't about equality, it was about replacement and consent. It was never about ethics, it was about control. Wake up. The trap is sprung, but the door is still open if you have the will to walk out. I remember sitting in my study that night, the blue glow of the television reflecting off the leather-bound copy of The Consolation of Philosophy on my desk. And it hit me, this wasn't just a confirmation hearing gone rogue. It was the full flowering of a poisoned intellectual tradition, one that began in Parisian cafes with chain-smoking postmodernists sneering at truth, and ended in Washington with a man's life torn apart by performative tears and linguistic sleight of hand. The same minds that taught us there is no truth, only interpretation, now demand we treat uncorroborated testimony as sacred dogma. When contradiction becomes policy, reason dies, and that night I watched it bleed out on C-SPAN. The deconstruction of virtue, Derrida, feminism, and the collapse of moral clarity. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. Nietzsche. But what if the why has been stolen? What if the very language of virtue, courage, honesty, duty, honor, has been systematically dismantled, so that when a man stands up, he finds himself disarmed, ridiculed, and gaslit back into silence? I watched Brett Kavanaugh's Senate hearing not as a political spectacle, but as a ritual execution, modern style. The mob didn't bring torches, they brought feelings. Dr. Ford claimed memory is holistic, a poetic phrase that sounds profound until you realize it's a semantic Trojan horse smuggling subjectivity into the courtroom. A man's life, reputation, and career were derailed not by evidence, but by the weaponization of empathy. A word so inflated it now means "believe me because I said so." The Senate didn't collapse because of misogyny or patriarchy myths. It collapsed because the rules of logic were replaced by the cult of likability. Kavanaugh, a stoic, precise jurist, was deemed not empathetic enough, as if judicial temperament should be measured by how many tears he can fake. Meanwhile, Ford, whose story changed more often than a chameleon in a kaleidoscope, was treated as gospel. Where was the burden of proof? Vanished, replaced by the feminist credo, believe women. But here's the contradiction, and I'll crush it with a syllogism so clean it belongs in Euclid's Elements. 1. Feminists claim all truth is socially constructed. 2. Therefore, believe women cannot be an objective truth. 3. But believe women is treated as an absolute moral command. 4. Screw, the position is self-refuting reductio ad absurdum. You cannot have it both ways. If all truth is constructed, then believe women is just another power play, a linguistic cudgel. If believe women is absolute, then truth isn't constructed, some things are real. The entire postmodern edifice crumbles under its own weight. Derrida didn't just deconstruct texts, he deconstructed accountability. He taught a generation that meaning is unstable, that language is a game, that no statement can stand on its own. And then the feminists, ever the opportunists, took that intellectual wrecking ball and swung it at the justice system. Now men are guilty until proven disbelieved. The Kavanaugh trial wasn't about justice. It was a public exorcism of masculinity, a sacrifice to the altar of victimhood, and the media, they didn't report, they ritualized. They turned a judicial confirmation into a morality play where men are always predators and women are always saints. But let's check the data. The National Crime Victimization Survey shows false rape allegations hover around 5 to 7%. Not 0, not 100%. But in the court of public opinion, it's 0% for women and 100% for men. That's not justice. That's gynocentric totalitarianism. This isn't new. Rome didn't fall because the Goths were so mighty. It fell because its citizens preferred comfort to courage, pleasure to virtue. The gates were opened from within by decadence, by men who traded their swords for silk robes. Today, the barbarians wear rainbow lanyards and teach critical race theory at Ivy League schools. They don't need battering rams. They've already corrupted the gatekeepers. Our universities, once temples of reason, now preach that objectivity is a myth and bias is inevitable. But if bias is inevitable, why trust their bias? Why believe their narrative? Because power, that's the unspoken rule. Truth isn't discovered, it's manufactured by the loudest victim. And who's the loudest victim in the West? Women, not because they suffer the most men die earlier, commit 92% of suicides and are 97% of the homeless, but because they've mastered the rhetoric of victimhood. They've turned biology into a battleground. Menstruation is oppression, childbirth is trauma, and motherhood a prison sentence. Feminism didn't liberate women, it infantilized them, convincing them they're too fragile to handle truth, too delicate to face consequences. And men, we've been castrated not by knives, but by language. We're told to check our privilege while our sons are expelled for farting. Our brothers die alone in motel rooms, and our fathers lose their children in family court, a system so rigged it makes the Spanish Inquisition look like a tea party. The divorce rate, 40 to 50%. The rate at which mothers gain primary custody, over 80%. And if a man dares to protest, he's labeled abusive, toxic, or worse, unempathetic. Shakespeare knew the stakes. In Othello, Iago doesn't kill Othello with a sword, he kills him with doubt. He poisons language, twists words, and turns virtue into its own undoing. Othello was noble, loving, brave, but he was also trusting, and in a world where words no longer mean what they say, trust becomes suicide. Today we live in Iago's world. The media, the academy, the courts, they don't speak truth, they perform it. Look at The Morning Show, a show celebrated for its nuance, which is code for moral relativism. A man sexually harasses his colleague, but we're told to understand his trauma. A woman lies to advance her career, but we're told she's complex. Complexity used to mean depth of character. Now it means no one is guilty. But let me be clear. Nuance without truth is just fog, and fog favors predators. When you blur the lines between right and wrong, the only thing left is power. And who holds the power? Whoever controls the narrative. Feminists don't want equality, they want supremacy. They've flipped the script. Men are now the problem, masculinity is toxic, and fatherhood, a dispensable service. But history laughs at such delusions. Civilizations don't rise on sensitivity training. They rise on courage, order, and sacrifice. Virtues that don't come from diversity seminars, but from blood, fire, and faith. I've seen the psychological wreckage up close. A student at the University of Toronto, bright, articulate, raised in a progressive household, told me he couldn't make decisions. What if my morals are just social constructs, he asked. I looked him dead in the eye. Then why are you breathing? Why not slit your wrists and end the farce? He flinched. Good, I continued. You eat, you sleep, you study, because you assume reality is real. You just forgot to apply that to ethics. Moral relativism doesn't liberate, it paralyzes. A 2022 U of T study found young men raised in relativistic environments show higher rates of anxiety, depression, and decision-making dysfunction. Why? Because virtue isn't a suggestion, it's a compass. Remove it, and you don't get freedom, you get vertigo. Men aren't born confused. They're made confused by schools that teach gender is a spectrum, but truth is absolute. By parents who say be kind, but never define kindness. By a culture that worships choice, but never teaches consequence. The remedy is not therapy. It's education, real education. The trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric. Teach boys how language works, how words shape thought. Teach them formal logic so they can dismantle deconstruction with a few well-placed syllogisms. Teach them rhetoric so they can reclaim the narrative from the liars and manipulators, and for God's sake, read Boethius. In The Consolation of Philosophy, written from prison as he awaited execution, Boethius reminds us, true freedom is not doing what you want, but wanting what is good. Aquinas taught that truth is adequatio intellectus et rei, the conformity of the mind to reality. That's the antidote to Derrida's word salad. Milton's Paradise Lost shows that rebellion against truth leads to hell, not because God is petty, but because reality has rules. Break them and you burn. But we don't teach these works anymore. We teach the hate you give and genderqueer. We've replaced epic with epidemic, and now we wonder why boys are lost. This is the nihilism pipeline. Derrida says language is unstable. Foucault says power creates truth. Butler says gender is performance. Feminists say biology is bigotry. Schools host drag queen story hour. It's not a coincidence. It's a chain of corruption. Each step erodes another piece of reality until nothing is left but desire and domination. And in this void, the only virtue is not getting caught. I saw a video once. A little boy at a library event, sitting on the lap of a man in a sequined dress, being read a book about exploring your gender. The boy looked confused, not curious. Confused. That's not education. That's grooming. And it's happening because we abandon the transcendentals, the good, the true, the beautiful. When you deconstruct virtue, you don't get progress, you get predators. Because once the good is relativized, only power remains, and power always flows to those most ruthless in seizing it. So what do? We rebuild from the ground up. Teach your sons logic. Give them Shakespeare, not social media. Show them that courage isn't toxic. It's necessary. That honor isn't outdated. It's saving. That truth isn't oppressive. It's liberating. The gates of civilization are still open. But they won't stay open forever. Either we retake them with reason, virtue, and fire, or we kneel and become the subjects of a new dark age, where men are ghosts, women are goddesses, and children are experiments. I choose the fight. I choose the West. I choose truth. And if that makes me a dinosaur, then so be it. At least dinosaurs went extinct with teeth. I once sat across from a man in a dimly lit diner, calloused hands wrapped around black coffee, eyes hollow like he'd been flayed by life, and he said, I used to fix engines. Now I fix Zoom glitches for women who think torque is a yoga pose. That moment gutted me. Not because it was unusual, God knows I've heard the same story in 100 forms, but because it crystallized the crime. We've disarmed men, stripped them of purpose, then mocked them for being soft. We've turned fathers into ATM machines with custody restrictions, sons into anxious husks trained to apologize for existing, and masculinity into a pathology to be managed by corporate DEI seminars. This isn't evolution. It's exorcism. And if we don't rise, not with rage, but with resolve, with work, with war, then we are not just dying out, we are complicit in our own erasure. The restoration of the warrior ethos, reclaiming male agency through purpose and play. Man is not made for comfort, roared Nietzsche from the abyss, but for greatness through struggle. And yet, here we are, in the year of our decadence, 2024, millions of men reduced to beta orbiters around emotionally dysregulated women, scrolling TikTok in sweatpants while their testicles whisper ancient laments. You don't need another TED Talk on self-care. You need a spear in your hand and dirt under your nails. You need to stop asking permission to be a man. The Reformation didn't wait for the Pope's blessing. Luther nailed his theses and the world changed. So too must you unplug from the genocentric simulation break the priestly monopoly of feminist psychologists and HR bureaucrats, and reclaim your birthright through action, not affirmation. Look at the ruins around us. Men are not lazy. The Gallup World Poll proves it, showing men report peak fulfillment only when engaged in meaningful work, physical exertion, or skill mastery. But our culture has turned against these instincts. We medicate boys for having testosterone, pathologize roughhousing as toxic, then wonder why men collapse into depression and suicide. The CDC confirms it. Men die by suicide 3.8 times more than women, yet the entire feminist therapeutic industrial complex ignores male suffering while weaponizing female victimhood. Women now initiate 70 to 80% of divorces, often weaponizing family courts to strip fathers of access, assets, and dignity. Courts so biased that in some jurisdictions, a man is more likely to be arrested for protesting a false abuse claim than a woman is for making a false claim. And let's not forget the 25% average cuckoldry rate in Western nations, confirmed by genetic testing across multiple studies, meaning 1 in 4 dads are raising another man's child, while paying child support to the woman who betrayed him. This isn't just betrayal. This is institutionalized male disposability. Meanwhile, women's empowerment circles host yoga retreats and journal about their feelings, while men's retreats like A Man's Path or Fugu involve cold plunges, fire walks, log lifts, and brotherhood forged in silence and sweat. At Fugu, men build shelters with their hands, fast for days, and face primal fears, because real growth comes from hardship, not affirmations. Contrast that with the feminist self-love movement, where women gather to cry about toxic masculinity, while their partners are told to check their privilege for fixing a leaky faucet. One path builds strength, the other builds dependency. One cultivates resilience, the other cultivates resentment. One is Homeric, the other is hysterical. The knight-errant didn't wait for a therapist's clearance to go on quest. He saddled up, sought danger, and found meaning in voluntary suffering. His modern counterpart isn't sitting in a gender studies class. He's building an off-grid cabin in Montana, welding steel in a garage, or sparring in a Thai boxing ring at 5 a.m. He's part of the Tool Belt Revolt, a quiet insurgency of men ditching soul-crushing corporate jobs to become electricians, plumbers, carpenters. The US? Bureau of Labor Statistics reports a 23% surge in trade school enrollment among men aged 25 to 35 since 2020. Why? Because fixing a breaker panel gives you ontological certainty. You know the wires, you know the load, you know the outcome. Unlike in relationships where women's emotions shift like desert sands, a properly grounded circuit doesn't gaslight you. It works or it doesn't. And when it works, you made it work. This is the 4 pillars of male revival. 1, physical mastery. Your body is not a temple. It's a weapon and a tool. Train it like a Spartan, not an influencer. 2, economic independence. Own your labor. No man is free who depends on a woman's income or a government check. 3, intellectual rigor. Read Marcus Aurelius. Not the 5 love languages. Learn logic, not emotional manipulation tactics. 4, spiritual depth. Not new age fluff, but the ancient recognition that life is suffering and meaning comes from enduring it with courage. These pillars aren't suggestions, they're survival architecture. Without them, you're prey. And let's talk about play. Boys roughhouse. They wrestle, they climb, they break things. Then the state and the school and the mother swoop in. Stop that. You'll hurt someone. But by age 30, when he's supposed to be resilient, he's shamed for not being sensitive. Peter Gray's 2013 research shows that the decline in free play correlates directly with the rise in male anxiety, depression, and helplessness. The system creates fragile men, then mocks them for being fragile. It's a catch-22 designed to break you. But real play, rucking with a 50-pound pack, woodshedding guitar, building a robot with your kid, that's anti-fragile. That's how you rebuild. I once watched a TikTok video where a girl laughed as her boyfriend tried to change his oil. Look at this caveman trying to be useful, she sneered. 2.3 million views. That's the feminist anti-mission in action. Not just opposing male purpose, but ritualistically humiliating it. Hunting, toxic, woodworking, cringe, martial arts. He's overcompensating. They don't want equality, they want supremacy, and they achieve it by making male competence look foolish. But every time a man picks up a wrench, a rifle, or a dumbbell, he spits in the face of that demonic inversion. So here's the test. When a woman invites you to hike, cook, or paint, do you say yes with curiosity or deflect with sarcasm? That split-second response reveals your soul. If you default to irony, you've been blue-pilled. Irony is the last refuge of the disempowered. Curiosity is the first step toward rebirth. My friend Dave, a former HR drone, said yes to a friend's invitation to learn blacksmithing. Now he runs a forge, sells custom knives, and hasn't dated in 3 years because women can't handle a man who glows with purpose. He's not lonely, he's free. The warrior ethos has nothing to do with conflict, it's about preparedness. It's forged in action, building, guarding, creating, persisting. It's standing firm and declaring, I am present, I am equipped. I act without seeking leave. The great works of Western civilization rose not from those who paused for consent, but from those who wielded tools, shaped stone, and stood defiant against tyranny you carry their bloodline. No more allowing ideological vultures to mock your resolve. Stand, construct, resist. Not to conquer, but for honor, for reality, for the boys who follow, who demand more than the decay we see today. You think the world is broken. It's not broken, it's betrayed. Every time a man flinches from danger to protect a woman, not out of duty, but because his DNA remembers what civilization forgot, that he is the shield, not the servant, you feel the ghost of Sparta in your spine. I once watched a man in a parking lot step in front of a woman when a drunk staggered toward her. No pause. No, is this consensual protection? He moved like a silverback gorilla intercepting a threat because that's what high testosterone, high character men do. Meanwhile, campus feminists scream about toxic masculinity while secretly designing litmus tests to see if you'll still play the lion when they're in trouble. The hypocrisy is so thick, you could chip it off with a chisel from the Parthenon. They want you neutered, docile, apologizing for existing, while they weaponize consent like a cudgel from the Inquisition. Harvard proved it. Women are 4 times more likely to cry non-consent when rejected by a high-value man. It's not about ethics, it's vengeance dressed as virtue. That's not feminism. That's emotional Marxism, where moral capital is hoarded by the elite and denied to the common man. Ask any father locked out of his children's lives by family courts that treat him like a debtor instead of a dad. Ask the guy arrested for commenting nice legs online, while actual predators walk free because they're marginalized. The system isn't broken, it's designed this way. The same minds who deconstructed truth with Derrida now deconstruct fatherhood, loyalty, courage, until all that's left is power, and they hold the mic. But here's the truth they can't take. You were born with the design. The trivium isn't gone. Use logic to reveal their flaws, rhetoric to shape the story, grammar to call out their lies. You don't need their approval to stand tall. Grab a tool, learn to fight. Say yes to the climb, the training, the difficult path, while they waste time tearing apart old plays. Rebuild your life like a thinker in solitude, on truth, not fashion. The red pill isn't anger, it's sight. And now you know the downfall didn't come from men being too powerful, but from men losing memory of their strength. Rise up, create, protect, be. And now the sponsored book introduction, Headship Decapitated. Fathers deposed from status and authority, while retaining responsibility under feminist satanic inversions and Marxist cultural revolutions. The world doesn't make sense anymore, not because it's complicated, but because someone rewired the wiring and told you the new malfunction is normal. I remember standing in a courtroom, a man in a suit asking me if I felt emotionally safe in my own home. I had paid for the house, I had built the business. I had changed the diapers, paid the bills, held the family together through divorce, depression, and debt. But none of that mattered. The system didn't care about provision. It cared about performance. Performance of guilt, of submission, of silence. That moment wasn't just personal failure. It was institutionalized betrayal, and it wasn't mine alone. Millions of men are waking up to the same truth. You are expected to carry the weight of fatherhood without being allowed to lead it. You are taxed, shamed, and dispossessed, yet still obligated to provide. That's not family. That's feudalism with therapy speak. This book is not for everyone. It is not for women who believe their feelings are policy, or men who think equality means fairness when it's been weaponized into erasure. If you are someone who believes the patriarchy is real, that men are privileged, or that feminism is about equal rights, close this book now. Go read something comforting. Watch a podcast where everyone nods and says you're heard. This is not for the emotionally fragile or ideologically committed to the lie. This is for men who have bled, been abandoned, been stripped of dignity, and still want to understand why. And more importantly, what to do about it. I've spent years dissecting the language of the new regime. Not just the slogans, but the grammar beneath them. The way equity smuggles in tyranny. How trauma replaces truth. How inclusion means exclusion of men. I've traced these ideas not to noble intentions, but to a deeper inversion, one where the maternal instinct, denied its natural expression, mutates into a political force. Women, en masse, are not oppressed. They are the operating system of a new social order that rewards emotional dominance, collective victimhood, and the systematic dismantling of male authority. This isn't conspiracy, it's coordination. It's happening in courts, schools, media, churches, and bedrooms. It's why birth rates are collapsing, why boys are failing, why men are vanishing. Marxism didn't win through revolution. It won by changing the definition of reality. It merged with feminism, not as ideology, but as biology, female nature coded into law, policy, and therapy. The result is a world where men are punished for strength, where responsibility is stripped of authority, and where the very act of leading is labeled abuse. I've documented this across 16 nations, from Nordic divorce mills to Silicon Valley HR manuals. The pattern is identical. Disempower the father, install the state as moral arbiter, then demand he fund it all. This is not accidental. It is engineered. You will read here how equality became a Trojan horse for female supremacy, how the language of care masks control, how collectivism is just infantilization dressed as compassion. You will see how the legal system treats men like financial hostages, how education pathologizes boyhood, how media glorifies female rage while criminalizing male presence. This is not hyperbole. It is forensically verified. Every claim is rooted in data, history, psychology, and real-world observation. I've interviewed judges, therapists, economists, and ex-feminists. I've analyzed divorce statistics, custody rulings, hormone studies, and cultural trends. The conclusion is inescapable. The West is not declining. It is being liquidated, and women, empowered by state and ideology, are its primary executors. This book is for men who want their minds back. Men who refuse to be gaslit into self-hatred for doing what men have always done: lead, build, protect, provide. It is for those who see the rot but can't name it, who feel the pressure but don't know the source, who are tired of being told they are the problem in a world that demands their labor while despising their nature. If you are such a man, this book will arm you, not with rage, but with clarity. Not with slogans, but with structure. You will learn how to deconstruct the feminist satanic inversion, how to resist the emasculation industrial complex, how to reclaim headship in a world that wants you silent and compliant. If you are not that man, if you believe the world needs more sensitivity training, more female leadership, more dismantling of toxic masculinity, then stop now. This book will not comfort you. It will not validate your worldview. It will expose it as the psychological coping mechanism it is. A system built to soothe female insecurity by destroying male sovereignty. You will not like what you see. You will call it hate. You will call it dangerous. You will say it's not the answer, but the answer isn't in more therapy, more legislation, more female representation. The answer is truth. And truth in this age is the most radical act of all. Headship decapitated. Fathers deposed from status and authority, while retaining responsibility under feminist satanic inversions and Marxist cultural revolutions, written by Conrad Riker. Buy now. Links in description.